Hi, everyone, and welcome to Only a Missionary podcast. I am your host, Clark Robinson, and today I have a new friend joining the podcast as a guest.
Hi, I'm Elder David Bresnahan.
All right. Very cool. So, Elder, why don't you, well, first off, I guess your title is still Elder. Would you like to explain to the audience why are we calling you Elder today?
As I am presently serving with my wife, we are senior missionaries. We are MLS missionaries serving in the Scotland-Ireland mission, and our assignment is here in Tralee, Ireland.
That sounds incredible.
Tralee branch. Yeah, it's amazing. It's marvelous.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. Well, to give us a little bit of background, so you've mentioned your wife. Would you like to tell us maybe more about your family? I mean, how many
Sure.
members are in your family?
Okay. Well, my wife, Sister Rana Bresnahan, is a retired school teacher. She taught first grade for many years, and we felt like as soon as we were available to go, we wanted to go. We've been planning to serve a senior mission, frankly, since we got married. And we were actually in Ireland on our honeymoon when we first spoke of it.
Oh my gosh.
And we've been saving money and planning ever since. We have 4 children, and they are all adults and living on their own. 2 served missions. 1 is in the military, in the Navy, and we are excited to be able to be examples to them and to try to let our light shine to them as well as to others.
Wow, that sounds incredible. What a cool thing to have your honeymoon there and then serve there.
Yeah.
So many years
later.
I
was a missionary as a young man here in Ireland. My wife served a mission in Colombia. So I served in what was at the time the Ireland-Dublin mission, and it's now the Scotland-Ireland mission because Scotland and Ireland have been combined. And while I was serving here, it was quite a challenging time. It was in the early 80s. That's when the Troubles were in full swing between the Protestants and the Catholics and the terrorism and so forth going on. I was actually caught up in one of the bombings that took place. I am a living witness that Heavenly Father looks after his missionaries. He took care of us that day and made sure we were out of harm's way just in time before the bomb went off. And it was quite an amazing experience in Northern Ireland. So I served then, and it's exciting to be back now and get to see many of the people that I knew back then, some of the people that joined the church back then, and to see them now. So that's been a really neat part of this. And then, of course, making new friends and sharing the gospel with them is marvelous to see the church growing. It's great that the mission, when they get together at their zone conferences, particularly talks about how the missionaries of the past came and planted the seeds that they are harvesting now. And so that makes me feel kind of cool to actually be here doing that. And another missionary who served when I served is on her way to come here with her husband, and they will be arriving in February. So that's really neat. We're just trying to see how many past Irish missionaries we can serve in Ireland, but we'd welcome anyone. Right now, my wife and I are the only senior missionaries in the entire country of Ireland, and there are vacant apartments, we call them flats, waiting for seniors. They are empty, and we don't have senior missionaries where we need them. So we sure need them badly.
Yeah, but I know of almost every general conference they're encouraging older couples to go, and I didn't realize, I guess, just that the need is so. I'm sure it's very common. It's a very big need. I'm sure in a lot of areas.
It's true. It's true all over the church, and I guess it's something we learn to make do. In our mission so far, the side benefit is we're getting to get to see all of Ireland because we travel from the East Coast to the South Coast to the West Coast and everywhere in between. And so we get to see
Wow.
some marvelous sights because everywhere you go in Ireland, there's something cool to see. And
I'll bet.
yeah, we need to travel the country because there's other senior missionaries aren't here.
Wow. That's incredible. Very cool. I'm sure. Very
It
cool
is.
experience for you. I'm sure you wish there were more people there, but that's really neat that you and your wife get to do that together. And um, I'd like to back up for a second. Now, could you tell us about your family growing up? Were you always a member of the church, or your family growing up members of the church, or how did that work
I
growing
am
up?
the product of an Irish Catholic father and a Swedish Protestant mother. My
Okay.
father's family came from Ireland, right from here where I'm at now in Tralee. Um, Actually, a town next to it is
Gosh.
called Castle Island, and we come from there, a little farm called Ferranabrack. And I've been to Ferranabrack. I've met my cousins. We have
Okay.
living cousins here, and Ferranabrack is the name of my company. So when I needed to form a company for my film production business, I called it Ferranabrack after the name of our farm. And so that was one of the first things we did when we arrived. We stopped at the
Wow.
farm, make sure we got to visit there again. Um, and it
Okay.
hasn't changed, and that's the cool part. I wanted to see have they done anything, and they haven't modernized it. It's still that old farm, just the way it was that my uh, great grandfather left from there. So
Wow. That's really cool.
I was to fully answer your question, I was a confused teenager. My
Okay.
father grew up, I grew up while watching my father be active and involved in the Catholic Church, my mother active and involved in the Protestant Church, and I was confused. By the time I got to high school and did more studying, I thought, well, um, I got to figure out which one is right, mom or dad. Based on the history of Catholics and Protestants, they can't both be right. So I wanted to figure
Right.
out which one was right. And I came to the conclusion neither one was. And
Oh, wow.
so I was somewhat confused by that. And then it was a few years later when I was in college that I decided I needed to study and learn more. And that's what led me to finding the church. So I tell my mother it's her fault. It's her fault that I
Okay.
investigated the church because she's the one that got me all confused. So
Okay.
I am the only one in my family that's joined the church, at least
Oh,
on this
wow.
side of the veil, and
Hmm.
it's been a great experience. My family's always been very kind and understanding and supportive. They brag about me sometimes. My family in Ireland calls me a man of God, and so it's been a positive experience. Some people haven't had that. Naturally, they were worried at the beginning. They thought, "What's our kid doing?" But they learned
Sure.
very quickly it was all a very positive thing for me and the changes that I made in my life, and they liked what
Hmm.
they saw, so they've been very supportive.
Wow. That's incredible. Very cool. And to be so curious, maybe would be the word at such a young
Yeah.
age too. Like as you said, started as a teenager. Most teenagers are
Well,
sleeping in class, or
yeah.
or skipping class or whatever. But for you to be so like, well, I got to figure out, which of these is the right one. That's incredible.
Well, I was I was a good kid. I wanted to please my parents.
Okay.
So one Sunday I'd go with dad, next Sunday I'd go with mom, and that back and forth kept happening. I went to the classes the Catholic Church had, their catechism classes. I went to the classes that my mother's Protestant church had, and they were called confirmation classes. They were quite different.
Hmm.
And I asked lots of questions. And I think they did, oh no, he's here again today. I had tough questions for them. Oftentimes the answers were, um, well, we don't know about that, or that's a mystery. Someday we hope to find out. those kinds of things. I was feeling frustrated, and so for the longest time, I would just I was fairly good at reading from the New Testament on my own.
Okay.
And studying. And I did get various pamphlets and study guides and things from various church organizations that I would use for my studies. Um, and when I was in college, my roommate and I even studied together sometimes. So it was a good progressive learning experience. And by the time I I learned about the church because of the example of two 16-year-old boys. I was
Oh,
a
wow.
gymnast, and as a gymnast, you train with other gymnasts. I went to a summer camp, and I was actually one of the coaches, and there were two 16-year-olds from Colorado. This is in Massachusetts where it took place. And I was
Okay.
pretty astonished uh, as I observed these kids. We were there for the whole summer, and about halfway through, um, there was kind of a lot of commotion going on while I'm trying to teach a class. And so I was about to tell the kids to be quiet, pay attention. But before I could, one of the kids in the class said to the boys from Colorado, "What are you, Mormons or something?" And one of the young men turned around and said, "Well, as a matter of fact, yeah." And I thought, that's pretty interesting. I've never met a Mormon. Now I know a Mormon. So once I
Hmm.
knew their background, now I was even more curious because their behavior was quite different from the other boys, and they were cool kids, they were fun kids, but they
Hmm.
were nice kids at the same time. And you didn't hear the bad words and the bad jokes and the kind of behavior that some of these other kids were going through. Being away from home all summer at a summer camp, it could get kind of
Right.
rough with a bunch of teenage boys, and they
Yeah,
weren't
I
like
can
that at
imagine.
all. So that caused me to think, um, whatever it is about these Mormons, they're pretty cool. And I didn't feel like I could ask them questions about their church. That just seemed uncool at summer camp to talk about church. But in the back of
Sure.
my mind, I was curious. And then on a gymnastics trip, I was actually in Utah, and I stopped at Temple Square just as a tourist. And a couple young ladies wanted to take me on a tour, and I was a little skeptical. I saw they had some pamphlets in their hand, and I said, "Why don't I take your pamphlet and I'll read it? And if I like what I see, I'll come back and go on your tour." So they happily gave me two pamphlets. One was Joseph Smith's testimony, and the other was What of the Mormons? And I quickly left Temple Square, and I put them in the glove box of my car and drove away. And those made it all the way back to Massachusetts with me. They did not disappear in the trash. I did hang on to them. And when I got back and I was cleaning out the car and putting things away, I saw those and I thought, oh, yeah, I think I want to find out about these guys. So I sat down. Joseph Smith's testimony sounded like a court case. And I thought, that's boring. I don't want to read that. So I read about what of the Mormons, because that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know, what about these guys? So it told the story of a typical Mormon family. I think it was for what they went through in a typical week. And I read about things like family home evening. And I read that the boy in the family was a Boy Scout. I had been a Boy Scout, and I thought, well, that's cool. If they like Boy Scouts, they're not that bad. And
Yeah.
I I was impressed with what I read, and then the only thing I had left was Joseph Smith's testimony. So I started reading that, and I was absolutely blown away. It was I had been asking these questions all my life. I wanted to know the things that this pamphlet was talking about, and I was getting answers that ministers and priests and even a rabbi that I talked to couldn't answer. And so I was pretty excited. In fact, I couldn't read it fast enough. It was so exciting. And then at the end of it, um, it told about the Book of Mormon, and it told how it came about. I was absolutely astonished. One thing I couldn't believe, I had never heard of Joseph Smith, because that was history. And
Yeah.
I thought I had studied history quite a bit, but I had never heard of him. And so, um, and as you can see from the picture behind me, um, I, uh, I'm a big fan of Joseph Smith, and that's one of my favorite pictures that's on the wall. I I decided to do what the pamphlet said. At the end of the pamphlet, it quotes from Moroni, and it tells us that we should pray to know if it's true. Now, I did not have a copy of the Book of Mormon, but I had read about it in this pamphlet, and I had never in my life prayed out loud my own thoughts, my own feelings, but I liked what this said. It said if we are confused, if we want wisdom, we need to ask God. And I thought, well, yeah, if there is this restored church, if it's really God's church, if there really is a God, and I had always believed there was, then he ought to be willing to let me know. Why haven't I thought of this before? Ask God. I've been asking everybody else. Why not ask him?
Yeah.
So I felt like I could ask and somehow get an answer. I wasn't expecting beings to appear or anything like that. I just felt somehow I'd get an answer. So I held the pamphlet in my hands, and I knelt down beside my bed, and I was looking at the page that described that we're supposed to pray and ask. And that was kind of my guide, because I was used to memorized prayers and reading prayers from a book. And so that was kind of what I was looking to do, a guide to tell me what to read. So I'm holding this and looking at it as I'm praying. And I asked God to let me know if what I had just read was true. And I had a unbelievably marvelous experience. I felt this tremendous sense of love. I felt like there was somebody there. I felt like um, I felt like I could feel his presence, and I felt his love, and I felt like I was getting the answer. I remember the thoughts coming in my mind were things like, "You know this is true. It makes sense. Of course it's true." And it was so overwhelming that I couldn't finish my prayer. I broke down and I just sobbed, cried. I think mostly because for the first time in my life, I prayed and I knew I was getting an answer to my prayer. I never knew that before. I always hoped there was a God. Suddenly I knew there was a God, and he knew about me, and he was answering my prayer. And that was pretty overwhelming. And when I got my act together, I finished my prayer, and the finish of the prayer was I began to repent. I knew inside I'm going to change. I'm going to be different. And I started telling the Lord I wanted to be a different person and to help me change. And I asked him, what do I do now? Now what? And I sat there for a long time in a chair, just kind of looking through this pamphlet and trying to decide what to do. And on the back, it had a list of missions. There's 4 or 5 missions listed on this pamphlet. But the one that I saw, and a mission to me, what is a mission? I remembered, the Alamo, they called that a mission. Maybe that's what they call their church. So I looked at this and it said New York City, and I thought, well, that's 4 hours away. I can't go to church in New York City, so I guess I'm not going to join that church. And I put the pamphlet aside and thought that was the end of that. but I didn't know what was going on. Now I know that there's Sister Bresnahan. And I thought, well, I have to find something more about this because the promptings were coming. And I was long ago, we had a thing called a phone book. And I was in the yellow pages and saw the heading churches go by. And I looked down the page and I was astonished that there was a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints right there in Worcester, Massachusetts. And I had never heard of them or seen them. And I thought, this is amazing. So I called. And lo and behold, there was a custodian that day in the church back in the day when there was such a thing. Right. And he picked up the phone in the hallway and he said hello. And I said, hi, this is Dave Bresnahan. I've been reading about your church and I think I'd like to join, but I don't know what to do. And he just freaked out. He had been a member for a couple of years. He's an elderly guy, and he literally dropped the phone. And the phone is going clunk, clunk, clunk against the wall. And I thought, what happened here? What's going on? And he came back on and apologized. And he said, you need to talk to the bishop. And immediately my mind went to back in the days when I was asking questions. And I said, no. I don't want anything to do with the bishop. And the reason was the bishop that I had known was this guy that most of the kids considered mean and rotten. They didn't want anything to do with him. If you went with the bishop, that was like getting caught in school with something. You get sent to the principal. Seeing the bishop was the same thing. And nobody liked him. So I had these bad thoughts about bishops and didn't want to see him. And he kept telling me, oh, he's a pretty nice guy. And, well, it's okay. Is there someone else? And so he said, well, you could talk to the elders. And I thought, oh, isn't that cool? They have something for the old guys to do. And I'll talk to those old guys. That'll be great. So they gave me the phone number and I called and they didn't sound like old guys at all. And to make a long story short, they came over the next day and started to teach me. I couldn't get enough. I was just so excited. And the thing that I was most excited about is I already knew all about the Book of Mormon. I already had a testimony that Joseph Smith was a prophet and that the gospel had been restored. And I knew the Book of Mormon was real, that it was the word of God. And I wanted one so badly. Wow. There was some time between all of this. And I went to the library and I asked them at the library, do you have a Book of Mormon? And this is, going to the reference desk section and all that. And the lady said, gee, we don't have one. And she suggested I go to the next town. She thought maybe that library would have one. They did not. And then that lady said, you should go to the county library. If anyone has one, they'll have it. So I went to the Worcester County Library. And that lady, when I came in, said, oh, yeah, you go upstairs, up on the second floor. You can see the Book of Mormon on the second floor. So I very excitedly went up to the second floor, and they had those swinging doors, and you have to go through. And when I went through, there was a lady at a desk, and she had a sign on her desk that said, rare books. And that didn't click in my mind. I asked about the Book of Mormon, and she said, oh, come with me. It's right over here. And she took me to a glass case where there was a first edition copy of the Book of Mormon that you could see but not touch. And I explained to her, oh, that's nice. And I wasn't impressed at all. I just said, I'm wanting to read a Book of Mormon. And she said, well, this is the only one we have and you can't touch it. And I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed. And so I was feeling very frustrated. But when the missionaries came over, they gave me a Book of Mormon. Sorry. I can't tell you how exciting it was to get that.
Yeah, I'll bet.
It was absolutely marvelous. And it was that kind of blue and gold colored one that had Moroni on the front. And I was just so excited to get that. And as part of their plan, they gave me a card that had a list of scriptures they wanted me to read to prepare for the next lesson they were going to teach. And I can remember thinking, oh, this isn't much. I can read this in a couple of minutes. And when I was done reading the assigned scriptures, because I was trying to be obedient, read what they told me, I decided I'm just going to read this whole book. And I started, and I couldn't put it down. And 3 days later, I finished the Book of Mormon.
Wow.
I barely stopped to eat and sleep a little bit, but I just couldn't stop. It was so exciting to read. Just thinking about the fact that Jesus Christ actually came to another part of the world because he's the Lord and Savior of the whole world, not just a small area in Israel. He came to his sheep. And from start to finish, the Book of Mormon talks about Jesus Christ and his atonement. And the thing that I didn't understand and was curious about, that nobody could seem to answer for me, was that very thing, the atonement of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. What is it? What does it mean? Is it important? How does that work? Those kinds of things caused the people I asked difficulty answering. And so I was getting all those answers, and it was just thrilling, really. And I was excited. I couldn't stop talking about it. Everywhere I went, everyone I talked to, I told them about the Book of Mormon. My family got kind of concerned. They thought I had gone off the deep end. I was coach of the gymnastics team at the high school where I had graduated and done my gymnastics. And I got warned a couple times by the athletic director, this isn't something you should be talking to these kids about. And I actually, the gymnasts were very curious. And I said to the athletic director, well, if they ask me questions, can I answer them? Yeah, you can do that, but you don't bring stuff up. Well, they were asking all kinds of questions. And so the missionaries, of course, are coming and teaching me every day. And they found out that I was a gymnast and a coach, and they said they wanted to come and watch. So I said, sure. So they came to the high school and sat in the bleachers watching as I was coaching these kids. And the kids saw the elders there. So stuff happened. I joined the church. I was baptized on the 14th of December, 1980. And one of my former gymnasts was now in college. He came home for Christmas vacation and was very happy that I was running practice during the school break for Christmas. And so I said, yeah, you can come and join us for practice. And so he came, he saw the missionaries, and he was asking me for transportation home. And that transportation home ended up being, he came to dinner with me, and we just never stopped talking. And he ended up coming to church with me, and so he is my first baptism.
Oh, hey, all right.
He was at Massachusetts, and he went back after Christmas break, and within a week, the missionaries called me and said, can you get out here? He wants you to baptize him. And so that was my first baptism, and it was kind of fun. So I was a priest, and I was able to baptize. So that was very cool.
Absolutely.
So
awesome.
That's how it all began. Okay. I don't even remember what your first question was.
That was it. That was just your background growing up, and that's how you came to know or become a member of the church. That's incredible. That's really neat. Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. So you become a member of the church. It sounds like you have graduated high school, and so you're a little older than
I was 27 at the time that I learned about the church. So I was 27, and I very much didn't look my age. I was this. First of all, you're not seeing me standing up and standing beside me. I'm a short guy, so 5'5", and I was short, skinny kid. I was a gymnast. and looked very young. I had hair in my head. And so when I joined the church, of course, the bishop wanted to get to meet me, and he called me in his office. And I asked him, what do I have to do to be like these missionaries that taught me? I want to do what they're doing. I wanted to go out and tell the
Mm-hmm.
world about this great stuff that I just learned. And he said, well, come and
Yeah.
see me in a year. A year from now, we'll get you set up so you can go be a missionary. You have to wait a year. I said, okay, great. So remember I said I was baptized on the 14th of December. On the 14th of December, a year
Mm-hmm.
later, I was knocking on his door. I was not going to wait until Sunday. It was the day, 1 year to the day. I went to see
Yep.
Bishop Entz in Worcester, Mass. And he brought me in. What's up? I told him, well, you said to come see you in a year. And he said, see me for what? And I said, well, I want to be a missionary. And he said, oh, I see. Well, now he's had a year to get to know me. Called me in his
Mm-hmm.
office and he said, have a seat. He says, I think we need to talk to the stake president. He called the stake president on the phone for the Boston stake. And that was President Williams. And President Williams is a physician. He had a special phone for the bishops to call him, and no cell phones in
Oh,
those days. It was like his hotline.
right.
So he picked up the phone, and I don't think he knew he was on a speakerphone. And Bishop Entz said, I've got this young man here, Dave Bresnahan, and he wants to go serve a mission. He's the young guy that joined the church I told you about. He's 27. What should I tell him? And President Williams said, tell him to find a wife, and one day they can go on a mission together. I got to go to surgery. Bye. Click. And I was
Oh,
crushed. I was just crushed. I thought, oh no,
yeah.
what's going on? And so then he had this nice conversation with me explaining about serving the mission as a senior couple. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to do what I'm told. So I had literally spent a whole year making sure that I didn't date anybody. And I was now very enthused about dating because I'd been told, get married. Okay, let's get married. And as time progressed, I was running out of single sisters to date. Kind of met them all, and
Mm-hmm.
nothing was happening. So a friend of mine who was the gymnastic coach at BYU invited me to come out to Utah and coach gymnastics out there. And because I'd already sent him one gymnast, that gymnast that joined the church, who was at UMass, transferred to BYU and
Oh,
eventually
wow.
became a member of the USA men's gymnastics team. And so Coach Young was excited and said, come on out here. And there's young men out here that need you. Come and coach them and help them get on this team for BYU. So out I went. And I even brought one of my gymnasts with me. He was still in high school and he came to live with me in Orem, Utah. And he did eventually go to BYU. Um,
Oh,
and that turned out well for him as a gymnast. My thoughts of getting him to be a Latter day Saint were uh, not to come true. He became a much better Catholic boy than he ever was before. And, uh, and so that was good for him. The bottom
okay,
line
good.
is, um, I had a new bishop, and my new bishop wanted to meet me. We had an interview, and he said, tell me about yourself. Where have you been on a mission? What did you do? All that stuff. And I said, gee, I haven't been on a mission. Why not? I explained to him why. And he says, I've never heard of that there's an age limit. I said, actually, it's 26. And I said, I can tell you what page it's on in your manual. If you want to get it out, I'll prove it to you. And he said,
Oh,
well, he said, if you found out you could go on a mission, would you go? And I thought, sure, in a heartbeat, I'll go. And he said, let me look into this. So meanwhile, one of the kids at the gymnastics school that I was coaching at
mm-hmm.
said, um, there's going to be an early morning fireside at our seminary. You might be interested. It's Elder Paul H. Dunn. And I
Oh,
said,
my
I would
gosh.
love to see Elder Dunn. That would be so cool. And I heard many talks that he'd given. I was an admirer, and he had been a former mission president in Boston. So I went, and when it was over, all the kids were lined up going to see him, and I thought, well, I'll get the end of the line. And I got to him, and we had a nice conversation. He found out where he's from. He started naming names, and my goodness, I knew some of the people he talked about. And he said, "Your ward was a branch when I was there," and he said, "How come I didn't find you when I was out there?" And I said, "Well, that's because you didn't look under enough rocks." And we joked around and had a good time. And then finally, I got the courage to ask, and I told him that I had been told I was too old to go on a mission. And I explained I'm now 28. And he said, "Who decides if you go on a mission?" And I'm trying to think really fast. And I thought, well, is it the prophet? And he said, "Why don't you go tell your bishop that I said to put your papers in and let the prophet decide what to do with you?" And I thought, okay, I'm going to be obedient. That's what he said. So I was
Yeah.
literally waiting for the bishop to show up in church, and I broadsided him. And he was all smiles, and he said, "I've got good news." I said, "Well, I've got better news." And he said, "Oh, who goes first?" And I said, "Go ahead, go ahead." And I thought, I'm going to one up him, no problem. So go ahead, you tell me. And he said, "Well, I've been talking to the stake president, and he suggested we put your papers in and let the prophet decide what to do." And I thought, okay, well, we have confirmation of that because I spoke to Elder Dunn.
Yeah.
And so he said, "All right after church, come to my office." And so I was there, and we started working on the papers. And I went around to doctors and dentists and did all the stuff I was supposed to do and got it done, got those papers put in really fast. And within a couple of weeks, I got my call from President Kimball. It said I was going to Ireland, and I was astonished. Wow,
Bet.
uh, just amazing. So um, I know that calls come from the Lord. That that didn't happen by any accident. And in fact, my bishop in Massachusetts said to me on the phone, because I called him to say, "Hey, guess what?" And he said, President Kimball is kind of old and frail, and he may not have caught the date, your birth date, on the form and realize how old you are." And he said, "It sounds like to me you slipped through the cracks, and maybe that wasn't supposed to happen." And so I decided I don't want to go on a mission unless it's supposed to happen. So I wrote a
Yeah.
letter to Spencer W. Kimball. And I said, "I'm a big boy. I can handle it. If this was a mistake, just let me know." And I've been told by some that, this wasn't supposed to be. And I got a letter back 3 days later.
Oh my
Didn't
gosh.
waste any time. I got a letter back that was from his secretary, D. Arthur Haycock. And he said, "President Kimball asked me to let you know that the Lord expects you in Ireland." And then it said, "Good luck on your mission." And signed D. Arthur Haycock for and in behalf of Spencer W. Kimball.
Wow.
So that's as big a confirmation as you can get that a prophet has
I'll
called you to
say.
go on a mission. And
Wow, that's incredible.
it was amazing. Yes. And so now here I am
Incredible.
back again. And this time, um,
That's so cool.
I wasn't going to take no for an answer on this one either. So uh, I'm the kind of guy that I keep persisting. So I thought, you know what? Um, there's this problem on the website. When you do the papers now, they're not papers, it's online. And you fill out, as a senior, you can fill out the places you'd like to serve. I think you can do 7 or 8 of them and put them in your preferred order as well. And so my wife and I decided, all right, she's going to put 7 and I'm going to put 7, and they're all different. So we
Okay.
really had
Yeah.
14 choices, and we figured out of 14, we'll get one of these. And the
Mm-hmm.
top one, oh, excuse me, the top one for both of us was the Scotland Ireland mission. And
Okay.
then I thought, you know what? I'm going to take it a step farther and see what we can do. And I contacted the Scotland Ireland mission president, and I told him who I was and my background, and I'd like to come back to Ireland. And he said, my secretary is going to give you some papers to fill out. Please fill them out, get them back to me right away. And the instant you click submit for your papers going in, tell me, because I'm going to click submit on these, and they'll get a request from me that I want you. And sure
Wow.
enough, it went through that way, and we got our call to serve in Ireland. Well, to serve in Scotland
Wow.
Ireland mission, and then he assigned us to serve here. And uh, the cool part is this is right where my ancestors come from.
Oh
This
my
is where my
gosh.
living cousins are.
Incredible.
And there's no stake here. There's a district. And when the district president learned that I was coming, and he knew about me beforehand, he asked the mission president to put me here as opposed to somewhere else. And because he needs help in his district to help it to grow. Our goal is to find enough members, new members, so that we can have the district become a stake. And that's what we're trying to help the district do. We met with him today. He came to our branch, and we're progressing along and working hard, and it's been marvelous work. MLS Missionaries, Member Leader Support, is what that stands for.
Mm-hmm.
Really do some neat stuff. And we get to help the members and the leaders, and we work directly with the missionaries. So it's a great opportunity, and plus we get to proselyte, do great things. Um, this week I've given out 5 copies of the Book of Mormon, and my wife was so
Oh,
excited
fun.
she gave one out this week as well.
That's great. Wow. That is incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. What a what an emotional like roller coaster almost to go from nope,
Yeah.
you don't get to go on a mission, get married to well, why not? I mean, what a cool thing. What a great
So
thing
when
that
I
you were
was
able
here
to
on a
go
mission,
and
I was with my companion. Um,
Mhm.
we worked in the office, and we had an assignment that took us. That we had to travel uh, across the mission, and so while we're traveling, I was able to talk with the other missionaries in the car, and we had this kind of a bet between us. Um, who's going to come back to Ireland on their honeymoon? And I said, oh, in a heartbeat. That's a great idea. I wouldn't have even thought of it if you hadn't suggested it. And they said, oh, yeah, wouldn't this be great? And of course, at the time that they were suggesting it, we were driving by a castle. And they
Oh.
said, wouldn't it be great if you could come on your mission, on your honeymoon and spend time at the castle, living in the castle on your honeymoon? And I said, I am going to do that. Well, lo and behold, as far as I know, I am the only one who did fulfill that. We came back here. I was on my honeymoon
Hey.
in Ireland. Um, not only did we make the rounds around the mission, we did stay in the castle. Dromoland Castle is a restored castle that you can stay in a gorgeous hotel room. They have a golf course, beautiful place. We stayed there on our last night before heading home. And um, at
Cool.
that time, we decided as a couple, we're coming back here one day to serve together. And so now here
That's
we
so
are.
great. That's so great. Wow. To make a promise almost to yourselves and
Yeah.
and speak it maybe into existence or let the Lord know like, hey, we're going to do everything we can in our life to come back and
Well,
you
and we
did it.
talk
So
about it
that's
regularly, and
incredible.
our kids expected us to do it. It wasn't a surprise to them when we told them.
Hmm.
We didn't tell them until we actually put our papers in that we were underway for doing that. I think they thought we were going
Okay.
to wait a little longer, but
Mm-hmm.
we did a couple of things. It was as soon as my wife retired. Um, I'm self-employed and I'm never going to retire, but as soon as she retired, we thought we need to do the things we absolutely want to do. When you get older, you start having friends die and relatives die. Everybody that gets older runs into that. You go to a lot of funerals. And so it made us think, and the world conditions made us think, we better do the things we really want to do most. We were talking about a friend who passed away, and all they had talked about was when they retire, they're going to travel the world. They're going to see this, they're going to do this and go there. And so, of course, that didn't happen for them. And I had just made a movie uh, called Forgotten about a guy that his wife died literally as he had retired from coaching high school and was they were about to leave on a cruise, and it was their dream to do this, and she had a stroke and died
Oh,
literally on their way to the airport. Sorry, giving away
oh.
my own movie. And so that came from a real story that I put into the screenplay, and
Okay.
that was happening. We were seeing that happen with people. So we decided, all right, what's the first thing we're going to do? And we decided we're going to the Holy Land because the world conditions are such. We figured we better do it now while we can, and that was in 2022, and we went in
Okay.
June. And we were worried about the challenges there then. And in fact, on one night when we were there, the skies lit up with a rocket attack coming into Jerusalem.
Oh
And
my
so we actually
goodness.
witnessed some of that, nothing like what's going on now. It's so horrible. But we saw just one rocket. Now they get hundreds at a time. Um,
Mm.
so we're glad we went when we did because you couldn't do it now. And who knows when you might ever be able to go again.
Yeah.
Jerusalem Center was closed, and all the students were brought to Greece. We went to the Jerusalem Center the 2 Sundays we were there. Well, actually Saturdays we were there to go to church, and how sad it is to see the impact this is having. Um, so that we did that, and then we decided, all right, now we've got that out of the way. Let's get busy and put in for our mission. So that's what we
Oh,
did
cool.
next. Just
Very cool.
this, and we're here until June of 2025. So
Oh,
we
okay.
are still 18 months left to go. You can choose a mission between 6, 12, 18, or 23 months are the lengths of times that you can choose as a senior. And if you go on the website, the church website, and look that up, it gives you all the information you could want. We're always happy to talk to people. We get calls and messages on Facebook and things like that. People asking um, various things we've experienced with it, and we're always happy to share with people. But we can tell you, um, you can serve right from your own home. You can serve from a foreign country. You can serve from another state. You can serve wherever you want to. You can serve at a visitor center. You could be a tour guide. You could be, it, they need people, for example, at some of the church sites like Nauvoo that have carpentry skills and can help with
Mm-hmm.
repairs and construction and that sort of stuff. So just
Yeah.
about anything that you can imagine. Um, Most missions have a mission doctor or a mission nurse. So there's opportunities for people with healthcare skills. There's opportunities to serve in the office. And that would be, if you've got secretarial skills, finance skills, bookkeeping, they need those in every mission. So there's something for everyone. And you don't have to be
Yeah, it sounds
scared if
like
you
it.
think, oh, I couldn't be like the missionaries. You don't have to be like them. It's the
Mm.
seniors have a completely different role. And we couldn't leave right away. We got our call, and we actually had plane tickets for, I think it was July 14th, and the day before our plane tickets were canceled by the church. Why? because our visa was not yet approved.
Oh
It
no.
turns out Ireland is one of the toughest countries to get a visa, and ours took
Oh.
3 months. So what do
Oh
you
my
do with these
gosh.
guys? They told us to go home and just go back to our normal life until our visa came. And I said, gee, I'd love to do that, but I don't have a home
Yeah.
anymore. We're
Oh
homeless.
no.
We had we had emptied our house, put it in storage, and gave it to a property management company, and they rented it out. So our house is being rented, which is wonderful. We're actually making a profit over what we pay for the mortgage, and so that helps us with our income for our mission. And
That's great.
so they said, "Oh, no problem. If you don't have a place to go, we will put you to work." So they assigned us to the Salt Lake City headquarters mission, and we served at the Family History Center for 3 months, and we
Oh,
received
cool.
all kinds of really in-depth training on family history
Oh,
research,
I'll bet.
which is
Oh man.
absolutely marvelous because now we can teach people family history here in Ireland. We actually have a day set aside on Saturday afternoons. We go to our branch and we have computers set up there that we will teach people on. And we have notices in all the towns all around us, um, and Facebook page posts. Each town has its own Facebook page, and each of them has let us put up a little advertisement that says, "Come and get free help with your family history." And so that's
Wow.
cool. And
Wonderful.
my wife is bilingual and has taught English as a second language as a school teacher. And so she's doing English as a second language, and we have lots and lots of Ukrainian refugees here. And so we're finding lots of ways to be of service, and
That's
that's
great.
part of member leader services is finding ways to do things like that.
That's great. Um, One of the last things I would like to ask, thank you for sharing all that, by the way, and especially the need of missionaries. Sounds like if you can
Yeah,
breathe, they need you in one, and because the Lord has blessed all of us with different skills, so that's a great thing to know.
and
What I'd like
I'll
to
say
ask you,
this too. Can I just tell senior missionaries the cool part about Ireland is the weather. So
mm,
there's people worry about, oh, if I go to the south, it's too hot. If I go to the north, it's too cold. All those kinds of things. Seniors are concerned about weather. Come to Ireland.
mm,
Ireland is one of the mildest climates there are because we're surrounded by the Gulf Stream, which warms Ireland. It's so warm here year round, it's rare to ever have snow. It's happened, I think, something like 10 years ago was the last snowstorm. And the mild climate enables them to have a year-round growing season. So Ireland is very much farm country, and we live on a
very
farm.
cool.
This house I'm in right here is a farmhouse next to a farmhouse, and he's our landlord. And they have a working dairy farm. Um, so there's farms all around us because they have this year-round growing season. It's really marvelous, wonderful climate, very mild. So I wanted to put that in. Want to go on a mission? Put in for Ireland.
Yeah, sounds like a place to be. Um, I would just like to ask you now if you have a favorite conversion story from your earlier mission or your mission now, if you'd like to maybe share that with us.
Favorite. So I guess the favorite's the one I started telling you about, the very first one, Bob Gauthier. He was
Okay.
a gymnast, very fine gymnast. And Bob, um, he also was very excited. We had gone home to I owned a house, this old Victorian mansion actually in Worcester, Massachusetts, that I turned into 6 different apartments. It was right
Oh
next to
wow.
Clark University. And I rented out to the Clark University students, and I kept one unit for me. And behind the house was this big old barn. So this turn of the century carriage Victorian house had a carriage barn, and it was actually heated. Um, so they could put the carriage in there, and the horse and the carriage and all that. So I had this big old barn, and I turned it into a gym, and that's where we
Oh,
trained
nice, smart.
gymnasts. And so Bob is sitting there at the house with me. He had never seen it. He had been with me before I acquired it. And so he decided we couldn't stop talking. We're going through the Book of Mormon, and I'm telling him all the stuff that I've been taught, and he was just absolutely as fascinated as I was. And before you knew it, it was midnight, and I said,
Oh,
Bob, you want this? There's a couch, and you could just stay the night. And oh, tomorrow's Sunday. Why don't you come to church with me? And he thought,
oh,
well, that's
nice.
cool. So he came to church the next day and was very enthused, very excited. And so we continued that during the Christmas school break. And when he had to go back to school, um, I actually drove him back to the University of Massachusetts. It's like a couple-hour drive. And we talked all the way and handed him off to the missionaries and went back home. Well, then I got the call that they wanted me to come and baptize him. And of course,
So
I'm this
great.
brand new member of the church, and baptizing someone, wow, how exciting could that be? And so I
Absolutely.
asked the bishop, and he said, yeah, I'll write up this little thing for you that you take with you and show it to them so they know that you can
Hmm.
do this. And we went, met the missionaries, met the bishop in that ward, and Bob got baptized. It was really cool. And I came home just high as a kite. This is so
Yeah.
exciting. At that
Yeah,
point,
of
I
course.
really want to be a missionary. And this is only like a month after I've joined the church.
Wow.
So Bob was cool. That baptism was cool. And Bob did become a member of the U.S. men's gymnastics team. And lucky
Incredible.
enough, that happened right after I returned from serving my mission in Ireland. And I
Oh,
got appointed as the coach of the U.S. gymnastics team. So I was able to coach Bob on the U.S. team, and we went to a competition in
wow.
Moscow and another one
Oh,
in Riga, Latvia. And that was the culmination of my coaching experience because not long after
I
that, I got
bet.
married and I decided I can't be running around all over the world anymore. I've been to about as a gymnast, I went to about 16 countries and every state
Wow.
of the U.S. except Alaska and Hawaii doing gymnastics. And I thought, that's no way to have a married life. So I got to stop doing that. And that's when I retired from gymnastics. But
Okay.
my top experience was coaching the U.S. team in those competitions, and Bob was on the team. So that was cool.
That sounds great.
I broke
Um,
the rules.
we're,
I broke the rules when I did that. I'm
oh
kind of a
yeah.
rebel. I've always been a rebel. And so as I was getting ready to go coach the team in Russia, I got a call from the international mission of the church, and they wanted to talk to me. I understand you're going on this trip, and yes, I am. And they said, well, we have some members we haven't heard from in Russia. We don't actually have any organization there. We'd like to see if you could check on these 4 members for us, make sure everything's okay. And so I said, great, love to do that. And so when I went, I had the opportunity to check on these members. They were all great. And Bob was my companion as I did that. And we ran around. But what I decided to do when I left, the international mission said to me, now there's no proselyting in Russia. Do not proselyte.
Hmm.
This was still Soviet Union. And I said, as in what? Not talk about the church? No, don't talk about it. Don't give away a Book of Mormon. Don't do anything. Nothing. Just go see these 4 members and that's all. And I said, well, okay. And inside my head, I'm thinking, now how can I talk about the church and get away with it? Then I thought, well, let me just get forgiveness instead of permission. So I
Uh-oh.
actually brought a case of Book of Mormons with me, and I wasn't supposed to see. But I thought, well, they
Right.
said, I'm not supposed to talk to the Russian people. And I thought, well, we have 32 countries coming to this competition. So I'll talk to the
Oh,
gymnasts in the countries. So what we did is at
okay.
mealtime, we were at the same place that they had the Olympics at, and they had a facility where everybody dined together. And I thought, well, okay, I'll bring Book of Mormons with me each time we go to the meal. And before you know it, we had people coming to our table asking if they could join us for the meal. Each country had their own table, and we were squeezing people in and bringing in extra chairs. And they would come and sit with us because they wanted to get the book from that American church, they would say. And so we would happily give them a copy of the Book of Mormon. And we were there for a week in Moscow, and I think it was only 3 or 4 days, and the whole case was gone. And it was because the word got around; they wanted it. So anyway, it's kind of the story of my life. When we went to Jerusalem, we broke the rules there too. That time, I just gave one Book of Mormon away, and it was to a 14-year-old Arab boy who was trying to sell me coins on the street. He came. I was outside the church that has the fence that goes around the on the Mount of Olives that goes around the grove of olive trees, which our guide said it wasn't the real place, but it's not the real Garden of Gethsemane. He showed us where he thought the real one was. But anyway, I came out of there, and this kid is on the street, walked right up to me, and in perfect English said, and showed me in his hand. You can't see my hand. He showed me in his hand. You want to buy some widow's mites? And I thought, oh, well, I know what they look like, so let me see. And I looked at them, and I thought, yeah, that's the thing. So I said, tell me about them. What are those? And he's quoting me scripture from Mark. And I thought, wow, this is pretty good for a kid. And he had great English. And so I told him, well, there's just one problem. Do you know what day this is? And he said, it's Saturday. I said, yeah, well, that means it's the Sabbath here in Jerusalem. And we just came from church. And so on the Sabbath, I'm not going to buy stuff, but maybe we can hook up with you later. And within an instant, this adult comes walking over, and it turns out it's his uncle. And his uncle's name is Moses. This boy was Abraham. So that was cool by itself. And Moses explained that they're there every day and we could come by again. And I said, sure, we'll do that. And we did. We went back and we bought some widow's mites. They're cool to have. And I mentioned that because when I came back, I asked Moses, can I give him this Book of Mormon? And Moses then says, sure, brother, I'd be happy for you to do that. And he said, I'm a member too. And I, what? And he says, yeah, I went to the University of Utah and I was baptized when I was there.
Oh my gosh.
Really? And he says, yeah, were you at the Jerusalem Center for Church? I said, yeah, we were. He says, I thought I saw you there.
Yeah.
So we met a Mormon outside the Garden of Gethsemane selling widow's mites. And we gave a Book of Mormon to his nephew. And that was how I gave away that Book of Mormon. Anyway, I'm a rebel.
Cool. Very cool. Hey, a rebel with a cause, though. So I think that makes it okay.
Yeah.
So I'd like to thank you for all of this, and I have one last question for you. Normally, I ask my guests, what would they say to someone who was kind of on the fence, to serve a mission? Like, what's advice you would give them to kind of give them the last push? But I'm going to ask you to give maybe a senior couple, that they have the desire to go, but they're like, oh, I'm just not sure if I can make the commitment, or I don't know if it's for me. What would you say to encourage someone to serve a senior mission?
I'd say start early. Make it your plan the way we did. Make it your plan as a couple. Talk about it as a young couple. Maybe even before you have kids. When you have kids, talk to your kids about going on a mission and talk to them about how you want to go on a mission and make it a family thing and make it I'm going to be really frank. It's not a question of do you want to go? It's not a question of maybe we'll see. It's the Lord expects you to go. The Lord expects you to serve. You can serve from your own home.
Mm-hmm.
You can do things right from your own home on your computer and never go out the door. It's that easy.
Okay.
So there's so many ways that you can serve as a senior couple. And if you are talking about it from the time your kids are little, what do you think they're going to want to do? Your kids
Yeah,
are
that's a
going
good
to
point.
be doing the same thing. They will live their lives so that they can go on a mission. Always with that goal, I'm going to prepare. And what can I do to prepare? I need to live right. I need to get my finances. I need to do all the things that I need to do to learn about the gospel and prepare and go. I think that most kids, most adults don't go because they're scared. They're
Sure.
afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
I can tell
Sure.
you that there's nothing to be afraid of. And you will be able to overcome any of the things that you think are obstacles. Why? Because this is the Lord's work. He's in charge.
Very good.
He
Yeah.
needs you. He wants you. He will support you, and he will help you to serve so that you can overcome whatever issues there are to overcome. You can, for example, my wife is in the other room having a Zoom meeting while we're recording this with our kids and grandkids. We do that every Sunday night. And we don't lose contact with them. It's wonderful because of Zoom, especially. We're in
Sure.
contact with them all the time. They still text us in the middle of the week, some question they have, something's going on, somebody's sick and we're worried about them. We check and see things like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we are in as close contact with them as if we were home. And
Okay.
for the
Sure.
young missionaries, I can tell you that you make new friends really fast. We were just at a zone conference this week, a few days ago, and it's amazing to see the missionaries show up for zone conference and all the hugs and high fives, and they're so happy to see their friends that they've met,
Yes.
ones that they knew in the MTC, ones that they had
Mm-hmm.
served with and were companions with, and now they've moved on. They have lots of new friends that they enjoy being together with, and I can assure you, you will overcome any issue that you might think you might have. I have overcome all kinds of stuff that should have prevented me from being here. And I walked away from a seriously great career in filmmaking. And my films um, have led to offers. Please direct this film. Please produce this film. And I've walked away from those to be here.
Oh,
And
wow.
I know when I go back, the offers will come again. And young missionaries, you might be walking away from sports or schooling or who knows what. It's all going to be there when you come back. Senior missionaries, same thing. It's going to be there when you come back. Most of us are retired at this age and not worrying about careers, but are thinking more in terms of grandchildren. Guess what? They're going to be there when you come back. We just found out another one's on the way. That's great. So we need to
Hey,
get
all
home.
right. Congratulations.
And that's exciting. So don't worry. The Lord takes care of everything. I know this is his work. I know the gospel of Jesus Christ is restored, and we need to be urgent about sharing that with everyone we can in any way we can possibly do it, because our Savior, Jesus Christ, needs us to help prepare the world for his return. I am grateful to be involved in his work, and I know we can all do this. In the name of
Very
Jesus
cool.
Christ. Amen.
Amen to that for sure. Well, I'd like to thank you so much for sharing, so much of your life with us, and those were some really cool stories and experiences that you've had and are continuing to have. And thank you for the encouragement there at the end for everyone to serve a mission. That's what this podcast is all about. It's to highlight all these wonderful experiences we have while we serve the Lord. And it's such an added bonus to be able to serve him, is that you get to just be a part of so many cool experiences that I'm right there with you, that a mission is definitely for everyone, and everyone should have the desire to serve.
Well, I would say to
Um,
your listeners, find me on Facebook. You have my name on the screen there. Do a search for Dave Bresnahan on Facebook. You'll find me.
okay.
And message me any questions you have, anything I can do to help you in the process of making plans to serve a mission, young or old, wherever you are. Be in touch. Let me know, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Very cool. Well, I hope lots of people take you up on that offer. And again, I'd like to thank you again for coming on today, Elder Bresnahan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I hope the rest of your mission continues to be just as successful as, as it's been to this point, and the first go round there in Ireland. So may you and your
Thank
wife continue to be blessed, and thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity to talk to your audience.